Welcome back, everyone, to the Real Talk Podcast. I am your host, Liam Crowley. This is episode 11, and on today's episode, we have some new trailers for A Quiet Place and A Wrinkle in Time, as well as an update on the status of Quentin Tarantino's latest movie. As usual, we will continue our weekly Star Wars reviews leading up to the release of The Last Jedi on December 15th, this week with a review of the original Star Wars. Joining me, as always, is cyborg enthusiast Mike Gillis. Mike, what's going on?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm an enthusiast, but...
You enjoyed his performance.
I said it was okay. What's up, guys? Happy to be here, as always.
Joining me again from last week, Jake Leone. Jake, what's going on?
Nothing much. Just happy to be here. Happy to talk some Star Wars. Let's do it.
Of course, and making his second appearance on the Real Talk Podcast, again from last week, is Luke Moran. Luke, what's going on?
Nothing much. Ezra Miller sucked.
I agree wholeheartedly. Was not a good Flash, and that will actually transition perfectly into...
Worst Flash.
Worst Flash? Worst on-screen Flash?
That's absolutely not true.
There's been two on TV, first one in film, and yeah, I would agree. He is a worst on-screen Flash.
1990 movie with the dude in the plush shop.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was, but it was also on TV.
He plays Barry's dad on the TV show.
Yeah, but that was like a TV series.
Yeah.
It wasn't released in theaters.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, we are going to go and start with our usual weekend box office report. Coming in at number one is Justice League, making $93.84 million. Pathetic. Number two is Wonder, making $27.5 million.
What's Wonder?
It's the kid with the messed up
Kiss.
face.
Yeah, it actually made a lot more than it was originally projected. Number three is Thor Ragnarok, making $21.7 million. Number four is Daddy's Home 2, making $14.4 million. And rounding out the top five is Murder on the Orient Express, making $13.8 million. Mike, just looking at the top five, what stands out?
It's kind of like a boring box office. There's not a lot there.
You think so?
There's not a lot of money being made right now. It's
Compared to past weeks, before the release of Ragnarok, obviously, the top five of number one was like at like 25 million. We are getting more money.
Sure,
in
we're
the
getting
box
money.
Office.
It's just like, I don't know. Maybe because I already saw...
It's still kicking.
Yeah. Maybe because I already
Somehow.
saw Thor and Justice League. I don't want to see Wonder. I don't care about Daddy's Home. I want to see Murder on the Orient Express.
I'm
Right.
seeing that this weekend.
That's good.
Before we move on, I just want to address the elephant in the room of Justice League, because making under $100 million opening weekend, it was originally projected to make $130. That dropped significantly in the coming weeks leading up to its release, and when it clocks in at $93 million, it's severely underperformed. And I read a report this morning that says it's projected to lose the studio $100 million. So,
Pathetic.
for a movie with the attached title of Justice League,
And such names as Superman and Batman.
and actors like Ben Affleck, Jason Momoa, even Gal Gadot coming off of her solo Wonder Woman movie, you would expect it to make a lot more money.
You would expect it to do these characters justice.
Yeah,
Hey.
no pun intended, or
Get outta here,
pun
buddy.
intended, I guess.
100% intended.
This movie I think made what it deserved, because it wasn't. I don't think it gave much fan service, to be honest. It wasn't a good unification story. These characters kind of just teamed up out of nowhere, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah,
I don't think that was the main problem with it.
I agree, but I feel like in what we were given in the trailers, I don't think there was much hope to begin with. And I feel like people are just so overworked on DC movies in general that they're starting to show that, this is a movie that they'll see eventually, but they don't need to rush out to see it opening weekend.
Why don't they just make one good movie at a time and just focus on that?
That's what they did with Wonder
That's
Woman.
what they did with Wonder Woman, and it was good because they didn't have to deal with multiple characters. This one, they're trying to, unite the league, and the only characters we know that have a backstory, I referenced this in our Justice League review, was Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman and Henry Cavill's Superman, yet we see Henry Cavill for about 10 minutes. So it's tough. Like we said, Ben Affleck, we felt he mailed in his performance. Yeah. This movie, for what the DC universe is right now, where they were really leaning on this movie to make a lot of money so that they could progress with Flashpoint and other movies, this kind of shows that they really need to change their course of direction.
And they've said that for every movie besides Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
So, 3 strikes, they're out.
I guess so. Anything else that stands out on the top five, I'll open it up for discussion.
Daddy's Home 2, still kicking.
I know, that is strange.
It's names.
And also Wonder is doing really well.
Yeah, opening weekend for Wonder, and opening against Justice League. It's pretty good. People care more about.
It would have been very sad if Wonder beat Justice League.
It had a huge marketing campaign on like Instagram.
Yeah,
Wonder,
it was a big.
It's one of those
social
like,
media
sad
campaign.
movies, right?
Yeah.
If you're a person with a soul, you should see this.
Yeah.
It was a book. I remember the book.
I'm happy to see A Murder on the Orient Express still in the top 5. Not necessarily because of the story, because people complained, but maybe just that, there still is star power that draws people in, because this movie did have an amazing cast.
It kind of went under the radar, to be honest.
Yeah,
with you.
it's in the month of November with your hard hitters like Justice League and Ragnarok.
Got swallowed up.
Yeah. So I think that's all we have to say for the weekend box office. Anything else? Any final thoughts?
No.
I would just
Thank God Bad Moms Christmas is out of there.
It'll be interesting to see how Justice League does next week. Well, I mean this upcoming weekend. If it drops,
what's coming out?
Nothing really new. If it drops below 50% of what it made this weekend, I would say that's a really bad situation. But if it makes 60 million, I'd say they should be happy with that, even though that would make back half of its budget domestically. It'll be interesting to see how they do internationally.
Probably do fine internationally.
I think internationally it's gonna be kind of like the Warcraft movie.
Before we move on, have you guys seen the international posters for Justice League?
No.
Is that the one with Superman on it?
Superman.
Well, no, not just those ones. The ones it was in China, I believe, where they show dead Marvel characters. On Aquaman has Deadpool caught in his trident. Cyborg is holding Thor's head. Wonder Woman is stepping on like Captain America's like face. I'm dead serious. This is how they released the posters. You can look it up if you want to.
That's awesome.
And that's what they've done in the past too. For Thor: The Dark World, they had Thor and Loki like in like a Titanic pose. They just don't care in China, I guess.
Jesus.
Yeah. All right. I think that's going to wrap up our weekend box office report, and we will get into our first news story with an update on Quentin Tarantino's latest movie, Untitled, just going by the working title number 9, as it's Tarantino's 9th film in his career. Per Vanity Fair, the Untitled film takes place in the summer of 1969 in Los Angeles and follows a male TV actor who had one hit series and is looking for a way to get into the film business. His sidekick, who is also his stunt double, is looking for the same thing. Vanity Fair notes that the murder of Sharon Tate at the hands of the Manson family serves as a backdrop to the main story. Now, what really caught my eye about the story is who Tarantino is eyeing to play the roles in his movie. He is eyeing Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, and Leonardo DiCaprio for the lead roles in this movie. Unclear who they would play, but Tom Cruise would likely be Brad Pitt's stunt double, is what they're going off of for rumors. And it says the plot synopsis fits with an earlier description of the film being in the same vein as Pulp Fiction. Now,
most likely
is Margot Robbie officially signed on to this?
I don't believe anyone's officially signed on to this yet. But she most likely will be playing Sharon Tate if that happens.
What really excites me is that it doesn't say that he's eyeing Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, or DiCaprio for these roles. He's eyeing all three.
Yeah.
And to get these 3 A-list actors in the same movie would be amazing, especially because DiCaprio hasn't acted since The Revenant, since he won his Oscar.
And
he's worked for them before.
I miss DiCaprio, I want to see him back on the big screen.
I see him playing Charles Manson.
That would be amazing. I want to turn the majority of the story over to Mike because he's a big Quentin Tarantino fan. So, Mike, when you hear this news about his latest movie, currently titled number 9, what are your thoughts?
I'm ecstatic.
Yeah?
If this happens, like, the last 2 movies Tarantino have made have been Westerns. Well, I mean, Django was Southern, but Hateful Eight a Western. So it's great to see him finally getting back into his, like, Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dog kind of roots. And most likely, the movie's going to be like an anthology kind of thing. So it's going to follow multiple characters around. And
do you think they'd split it up into parts as they've done with his past movies?
Most likely. But the whole thing is like it's not about Charles Manson. It takes place during.
That's what they say the backdrop is.
Yeah, it takes place during the summer of '69, which those murders did take place. Like the song,
Bryan Adams.
Terrifying.
Summer of
'69. Okay. Yeah, but it's gonna surround that. So expect Charles Manson not to be the main character. Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise, if they're signed on, they are the main character.
Yeah. It's interesting to see if you think DiCaprio would play Charles Manson, because if he's going to play Charles Manson, that would mean he would basically have third billing on this behind Pitt and
Well, I mean, he did
Cruise.
for Django.
That's true. So do you think it's maybe like he's willing to take a step back because of the Oscar that he's won, and he's willing to have a more flexible schedule? Because obviously this isn't something he'd be considered Best Actor for.
No, I
he'd
think
be a supporting role.
I think it's because
third billing, but he's got a good role.
yeah, it's
Right.
also Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah,
Quentin
that's
Tarantino
true.
is one of the greatest directors of our time.
Yeah, and I think he's someone that he wants to work with again after Django. Just the stories of on set there where he broke his hand on the glass and he kept doing the scene, that really like added to his repertoire.
He's not going to have an issue getting third billing. Also, I mean, Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, like they're all big names.
Yeah.
So I feel like they'd fight over who gets top.
I don't think Tom Cruise and DiCaprio have ever worked together.
I don't think so.
I know. Actually, I don't think Pitt and DiCaprio have worked together either.
It's like three of the biggest names in Hollywood.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool to bring them into a movie together like this. And it was Sony who bought the rights to this movie?
Sony, Quentin Tarantino had to leave the Weinstein Company for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And multiple studios were like, hey, come over here. But he eventually sided with Sony, so Sony's going to be funding it. And I know he's going to get like a lot of creative control. This is going to be the most Quentin Tarantino movie.
What's interesting is how adamant Sony was to pursuing the rights to this movie, because their biggest problem is with box office, and Tarantino movies, they don't make blockbuster money.
Yeah, they're not. They're just critically acclaimed.
They definitely make their budget back, but I remember The Hateful Eight did very poorly at the box office. Credit, it was going up against The Force Awakens, so hopefully this movie has a more appropriate release date. Maybe sometime in November, get some Oscar contention.
Yeah, I believe it started. I know that makes sense for November because it's going to start filming in June 2018.
Right.
So it could wrap up into November. But I'm very excited.
Yeah, I hope all three sign on. I hope Margot Robbie signs on.
And I am worried a little bit that the material of Charles Manson, people might like, oh, that's so offensive, especially like he's dead now.
Quentin Tarantino movie.
True.
The dude made a movie about a guy that hunts Jews.
That's true.
It escalates. Every single one of his movies pushes farther, which I think is good. Like I think movies should push boundaries.
Yeah.
But I'm very excited to see this because
to make people think.
He could do very interesting things with the story of Charles Manson, and I like how it's not about Charles Manson; it surrounds him.
Yeah, it takes place during the same time.
Yeah, that helps it.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if they like play parallel storylines, and then like in the climax of the movie, that's when
they bump into each other.
Exactly.
Yeah. This would be the first Tarantino movie I see in theaters, though. I've never
Really?
seen a Tarantino movie in theaters.
I don't think I have either, to be honest. I saw both Django and Inglourious Bastards on Netflix, and then I own Hateful Eight.
Yeah, I own all of his movies.
I think that's our final thoughts on the Tarantino movie update.
Very excited.
Yeah, hopefully we get to get confirmation that all three have signed on.
All four
with Margot Robbie in the coming weeks. Okay, moving on to our next topic, we have a new trailer for Disney's A Wrinkle in Time. I'm just going to read the synopsis real quick because not many people are, they know that this is being released. It comes out March 9th next year. But just to get the synopsis out there, it goes, Meg Murray and her little brother Charles Wallace have been without their scientific father, Mr. Murray, for 5 years, ever since he discovered a new planet and used the concept known as a tesseract to travel there. Joined by Meg's classmate Calvin O'Keefe and guided by the three mysterious astral travelers known as Mrs. Whatsit, Mrs. Who, and Mrs. Which, the children brave a dangerous journey to a planet that possesses all of the evil in the universe. We just watched this trailer before starting recording, so just general thoughts. I'll toss it to Jake first. Jake.
I read A Wrinkle in Time, and I remember it being an interesting book.
Yeah.
Although not that memorable. So,
yeah, that's true.
I mean, I
read it in elementary school, right? Was that middle school? Okay, yeah.
It was a tough. I remember it being a tough book to read at the time.
Especially with it's the completely literate little brother, right? With Charles Wallace.
Yeah. I don't know. It seems kind of interesting, but I don't know if I'll see it.
Yeah. Luke, any thoughts on the Wrinkle in Time trailer?
I don't think it looks good.
Yeah, it's very...
It's just like, here's Oprah, here's Mindy Kaling. Oh my god, it's the light. Like, it's going to be stupid.
Yeah. One thing that I noticed is when we were watching the trailer, we didn't really see characters, we saw actors.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, that's Zach Galifianakis, oh, that's Mindy Kaling,
Michael Cera.
like Oprah Winfrey, all that. Yeah, and so...
Chris Pine.
It looks like a very vibrant trailer and very colorful, but at the same time,
it's gonna bomb.
If we look at the past 2 years with